Hey everyone, it's Mike from Chess Lifestyle. So today I actually wanted to make a second video about this whole Magnus analog clock Alicia situation because since my last video, there have been quite a lot of updates in terms of not the event itself, but just analysis of the specifics of the event. So I wanted to cover that because I think it would be important instead of just leaving my last video just where it was. So basically in my last video, I did confess to you guys that I hadn't actually looked at the FIDE rules itself about what specifically it says about, watches, smart watches, digital watches, like what exactly it says. And to me, it felt completely obvious that, there's no way that they would have written a ban on all watches because analog watches are not electronic, not digital. There's no possibility that an analog watch can be used to cheat. But having said that, this is where it gets really interesting, right? Because here in front of you, you can see that there was a tweet by international arbiter Chris Bird. And what he posted at 5:26 p.m. on October the 12th, yesterday, was that the FIDE laws state, during a game, a player is forbidden to have any electronic device not specifically approved by the arbiter in the playing venue. Fair enough. The FIDE anti-cheating regs also list wallets, smart glasses, pens, watches as forbidden gadgets. Now, when I saw that, my reaction to seeing wallets, smart glasses, pens and watches as forbidden gadgets, my mind went straight to there's only one conclusion of that, which is that they clearly meant wallets, smart glasses, smart pens and smart watches. Like they thought, like it's some poor English and they made a mistake, and that when they say smart glasses, pens, watches, they mean smart glasses, smart pens, smart watches, right? Because what confirms that line of logic is why would they ban pens from a tournament, right? Everyone, no matter which tournament it is, you have to notate the moves. So obviously everyone has a pen, right? So I thought that was like absolutely 100% just like some kind of typo in the FIDE laws. But the thing is, it might not actually be the case. Now, I've been listening to a lot of different people's arguments about why the FIDE laws could potentially suggest this. And there are two reasons why pens and watches might count as forbidden gadgets. Now, just to get clear, the definition of gadget does include mechanical within its definition. It's not necessarily only electronic devices. So yeah, if a gadget were just digital or electronic, then for sure that would confirm that it must be a typo. But basically, the fact that pens and watches are here, I think the idea of it could mean that, a tournament should supply their own pens that must be used. And the reason why watches might be banned is because there can be some smartwatches that could be confused with an analog clock, like some of these like trendy smartwatches that look more like an old-fashioned analog clock. Now, I've honestly scoured the internet for a lot of smartwatches just for my own curiosity to see, if there are any smartwatches that would fool me to be an analog watch. And there hasn't been any that looks so much like an analog clock that you wouldn't be able to tell. But I can definitely imagine that from a distance, you might just assume it's an analog clock. And from an arbiter's perspective, you might just want to have a hard ban on all of the watches just to make things simple. So from tournament rules, I can understand how it would simplify the situation. And I can imagine for that reason why they might include it in the FIDE anti-cheating regulations. Now, as I was working all of this out, Chris Bird then later posted this follow-up tweet. In the FIDE anti-cheating protection measures document, for level 1 events requiring maximum protection, Qatar Masters is level 1 due to the over €100,000 prize fund. Watches, pens, and other writing devices containing metal are not allowed in the playing area. Now, you can get analog watches that have metal on them or in them, and you can have pens that have metal in them. So that is actually very clear in writing that that is not allowed in such an event. And as someone who has passed a FIDE Arbiter exam and a national arbiter myself, I did not know that there was a special criteria for level 1 maximum protection tournaments. So fair enough, this gives Magnus more of a leg to stand on. Now, one more thing I wanted to mention about this is that I don't think I'm alone in not knowing these extra rules. And the fact that Chris Bird took another, I don't know, however many hours, maybe like another 12 hours, I can't work it out, another 12 hours, let's say, since Chris posted his follow-up tweet. It wasn't like Chris knew this off of the top of his head about these regulations for level 1 maximum protection events, right? So even an international arbiter doesn't, know for 100% sure these specific rules. So what I imagine is the arbiter who Magnus spoke to at the event when Magnus was complaining about the analog watch, I think it is completely within the arbiter's right to have dismissed the comment and said that, it's an analog watch, it's fine. Because basically the very first thing that you learn in the FIDE Arbiter exam is that you have to use your best judgment as an arbiter to interpret the FIDE laws. And Hock, Stephen, who is a FIDE Arbiter who actually took the FIDE Arbiter exam, summarized it perfectly. He said, the FIDE laws of chess granting arbiters discretion will take priority over that handbook. I do not know who issued that handbook, as it looks like it's from the online chess COVID era, but even if it's FIDE, the laws of chess will take precedence. And that's the most important thing. FIDE handbook are not like, government law. It is a set of rules and laws that are being constantly regulated, constantly updated, and they have, these annual, I don't know if it's annual or every 4 years, I can't remember. I think it's every 4 years actually, or maybe 2 years. I can't remember, it's been a while since I took the exam, but the point is, every once in a while, they will have a big review and they will adjust the terminology to make it as crystal clear as possible. And I guarantee that this specific point about watches will have a huge review and there will not be any beating around the bush next time because they will have it crystal clear what is allowed and what isn't. But the point is, as an arbiter, the laws of chess will always take precedence and you have to you have to use your best judgment to interpret the laws. And, I think to a lot of people, it makes complete sense that, a digital watch would be banned, which has the capacity to be used to cheat, as opposed to an analog watch, which doesn't have the capacity to cheat. But yeah, this needs intense review. But at least what it does suggest is that perhaps, if Magnus does know these rules for like level 1 maximum security events, maybe this is a fair thing to be annoyed about, right? So I appreciate Magnus feeling annoyed about this, and I also appreciate the fact that, if he played this opponent in round 2 who had this watch, he hasn't had a time to vent about this situation until after the game. So you could potentially suggest that, it's poor timing, but it's just unfortunate that, Magnus came to this realization only after he lost the game, right? And I also wanted to point out that it is really good, actually, that Magnus made this tweet recently, calling out Hikaru, who wrote this very baity YouTube video title called Magnus Loses and Then Accuses. And Magnus has just said, just to be clear, I am not accusing my opponent today of cheating. Constantly using my name for clicks is fine, but this is just lame, do better. So yeah, clearly, Magnus didn't intend, perhaps, to, suggest his opponent could have been cheating with the analog watch. But at the same time, I think John Ludwig Hammer makes a very fair point, saying that Magnus, who has a history of cheating accusations through insinuation and letting the internet reach their own conclusions, is far too smart to claim ignorance of how this tweet would have been received. And I think this is completely hitting the nail on the head, right? Like, you don't link this complaint about an analog watch right after you've played a player who you've lost to who was using an analog watch, because you're making that link. Even if you say, oh, but I'm not accusing you of cheating, but it can be interpreted in that way. And honestly, from seeing Magnus's interviews, and I don't know Magnus as a person, obviously, but I could imagine that Magnus didn't mean it to be perceived this way. I can imagine that's genuine. But yeah, if it is genuine that he didn't mean it to be perceived this way, then it's definitely ignorant to have tweeted anyway. And yeah, John Ludwig Hammer's even going as far to say that he can't even claim ignorance on this, because he's way too smart to have made such a foolish mistake, right? So I think that's really legit. And a really important point I wanted to bring up as well, that a guy called JJ Chessfields from Twitter brought up, which is what JJ said was that Magnus played a guy who was on the chess.com leaked list of GMs who cheated, and had another credible cheating allegation from his youth in the semi-final of a tournament broadcast without delay. He won the match and said nothing. And I think this point is extremely important as well. And I've since talked to JJ about who this person was. And actually, it was really stupid for me to even have to ask JJ, because it's actually really obvious if you think of the recent tournaments and who played Magnus in a semi-final of a tournament. It's pretty clear who we're talking about. But yeah, this player, if he had beaten Magnus in that semi-final, he ended up losing 1.5 to half. So drew one game, lost one game. Had he beaten Magnus, for sure, this player's career would have been over. Magnus would have made a bunch of tweets about how it's unfair that, the tournament broadcast has no delay, how this guy is also on this same list that Hans was on. For sure, this player is going down. His career is over. But Magnus won and didn't say a word about the situation. And I think that really just, shows, where Magnus's mindset is regarding this whole thing. And for everyone who is on Magnus's side saying, he's just saying that, he's against the tournament regulations. He's not got anything against Alicia, and he's not accusing him at all. Well, if that was really the case, why didn't Magnus make a bigger deal about this high level, high class tournament and this opponent who, even as JJ says in the past, Magnus suggested that circumstances such as the above would lead him to protest an event or even withdraw from it. And yet Magnus didn't do any of this, right? So it clearly is from a place of being salty about the loss, kicking up a fuss as an excuse because he doesn't want to face the fact that he just completely got outplayed. And it ultimately does belittle his opponent. And this is what John Ludwig Hammer is saying, that, these tweets, he's not an idiot. He's an extremely smart guy, a genius. And he knows what he's doing, and he's covering his back by making it crystal clear that he's not accusing his opponent, but it still takes away from his opponent's win. And I think actually I'll just finish by saying, I'll just highlight this post by Agadmetor, who just said, if Magnus played the exact game he lost yesterday, but with the white pieces against any top player in the world, and won brilliantly like this, it would be called a game of year, if not century, just to put things into perspective. And I also agree, the game was absolutely fantastic. And people remember it as, this analog watch game that, sparked up a storm about whether potentially Alicia could have been using his analog watch. It does tarnish the quality of the game and, the history of the game and the memory of the game. So, yeah, all in all, definitely the situation about the watches was a lot more nuanced than I initially thought in my initial video. And I do sympathize a little with Magnus, how, he could be annoyed that, the tournament isn't holding up to the FIDE laws, which are posted pretty clearly, I have to say, after, Chris has clarified that this level 1 events requiring maximum protection. That seems pretty clear to me. But ultimately, Magnus hasn't spoken up about poor tournament regulations when he has won his games. And I do think that it's not completely innocent, that he does know what he's doing by making these tweets in light of Alicia's win. Like, I don't think it's completely innocent. I am in agreement with... did I close? Yeah, I closed it, but I'm you know the tweet I'm talking about, like John Ludwig Hammer. Like I agree with what he's saying. So yeah, I think that's the part 2, which I think needs to be said. I don't think there will be need for a part 3 because I mean I think that's as clear as it is, and I definitely think the FIDE laws are going to be updated to be even more clear. But yeah, I at least am glad that Magnus has clarified again that he's not accusing his opponent of cheating, and that at least makes the situation slightly better, that he's really emphasized this time. But still, the initial tweets I feel were problematic, and yeah, I just wanted to get that clear because the last video I think was the best summary I could make at the time with the facts present, but I think this helps clarify the situation even better. So I hope you found that interesting. And again, would love to hear your thoughts below in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye.